you're seeing the meta structure where what you called the addiction, which I've often called, I think it's the root of all addiction. And it's this sense of something is missing and I know what it is. And so it becomes this conviction, and the conditioning is this figuring out and knowing what the problem is. And prior to that, there is the belief that there's a problem, and that there is something that is missing. There's an experience of something missing. But it's actually, it's the other way around. Something has been added that creates a problem. But the seeing of that structure of something is missing, I know what it is, or it's up to me to figure it out. And then this creates a constant movement. And moving out of that, you could have more clarity around what to actually bring your attention to. And it's no longer the projection of problems. The projection of problems into me, into my body, into my experience, into my relationships, into my government, into the world. And then we can actually, once we can rest without that. So one way to notice that this is so compelling is because you can't sit for 5 minutes without that being active. There's just no way to pause it. And so that shows, and depending on where we are in this work, if we've done a lot of meditation, we might be able to have that experience, but it's often extremely compelling. It's extremely addictive. Even in meditation practice, there's this activity of something I need to do in the meditation practice. There's something in the practice that I need to crack or solve or glimpse in order to then, so it gets transferred into the practice. And it's this creating a problem and resolving the problem. And now it's through the meditation practice. And so the fact that we can't just be 5 minutes without activating this kind of projecting of a problem and then the I that is active fixing it. Yeah, and one way to work on that is the self-inquiry that addresses the reality or the nature of that I, but also you could address the activity of it, which is this problem creating, problem solving. And then there's this sense of it's up to me, it's in my hands. But you will notice it just jumps around like crazy. There's always a problem somewhere, and it's going to be in the body, it's going to be in my personality and myself, or in the world and relationships, or in work, or whatever. It's going to be something that's, you can't take 5 minutes break from it. It's actually very conscious. It's the most conscious thing, but the the structure is unconscious. That is something that is the actual root of the problem, is what's unconscious. It's actually, I wouldn't even say that's unconscious. It's just there is a belief that gets the whole thing going, and that belief hasn't been questioned. Yeah. It's just having a moment to, even if it's 1 minute of a break from that, it could be really powerful. Because if you get what we call a glimpse, there's all kinds of things we could call a glimpse, but it could be a glimpse of seeing that by being without it for a moment. And then it reveals the possibility that that's not something that's absolutely real. And then that can change the whole, that we can go way back into it and ignore the glimpse, or start to really, if we are rational, we can say, oh yeah, actually there's something here that I saw, the truth that it's not fundamentally real, not fundamentally true. There's the sense of it, this is an addiction. And so that's the first thing we can see, is that there is something that's problematic. Otherwise, we just, as you said, it's reality. This is how to live. But when we can glimpse that that's problematic, then the next thing is, can it be solved? Can that be solved, in the sense, can, and this is reminding me of Buddhism, where the Four Noble Truths, there is suffering, there is the cause of suffering, and then there's the end of suffering. And then there's some other thing. Do you remember them? The four
Life is suffering, the noble.
Oh yeah, and then the way is the fourth, right? Yeah. But basically what I'm saying is, you have to recognize this is suffering, that addiction, versus that's the nature of life, and I'm just in it, and while I'm alive, I'll be in that. Life comes with that fundamentally. And so to see this is actually unnecessary, there is something that is addictive, and then the possibility that we can live without that. And then the how. But it's really important to see it's possible to live without that. Yeah, and it requires, you could call it a process of healing, or you could call it the withdrawal symptoms of that addiction. And that's another stage, when we start to see that, we start to fight with these withdrawal symptoms, which, when I talk about going into fear and pain, that's basically it. Because if we keep moving into this process, we will get into what the whole addiction is helping us manage.